this town, been a long time coming, been a long, hard drive. Gonna smoke some, gonna drink some, gonna find a little trouble if not, we're gonna make some.
Welcome back to the Four and Fuel podcast. We are back for episode 4, and we got a lot to talk about. Bristol did not let us down, and it is giving us so much to talk about today. But I want to welcome back our 4 extra guys, Steve, Wes, Kevin, Brandon. Steve, how's it going?
It's going good, man. I guess we're supposed to ask you now. How are you doing, Dom?
Oh, thank you. I mean, I know Wes probably was going to ask, but you beat him to it. You know, I'm doing great. You know, we did a lot of hiking today, and, you know, I'm pretty tired, but excited to be here. Had some Five Guys for dinner. Five Guys always hits the spot. Another guy that loves Five Guys is Wes. Wes, how's it going?
Well, I was doing better because it kind of got ruined when Steve asked how you were doing. I was the one that started asking the host that, but it's all right. Steve and I are both repping our Terry Labonte hats today.
Texas Terry.
Fantastic. Anybody all day for Texas Terry. But no, good choice on Five Guys. Hope you had a good run. And all of you are we're all going to chat about what happened this week.
Now, Wes, I just got to ask you a question. Some people may not believe this, but, you know, legend says we have the same exact order at Five Guys. Can you tell the fans what that order is?
That order comes with a bacon cheeseburger, 2 patties,
piece of biscuit.
one. What'd you say?
2 pieces of biscuit.
But yeah, it comes with the bacon cheeseburger. We have to get our grilled onions on there. We have to get our grilled mushrooms, and it comes with mayo. You got to get it with mayo to have that that like sealant on the patty.
Of course.
Makes it so good. And then you get a regular fry and a drink with that. And that's the exact same order. I don't know how, but Dom and I have the exact same, especially burger order, not drink. And same fries too, unless you get the seasoning on it sometimes. But it's kind of funny because I've never met somebody that has the same order as me when it comes to the best burger chain in the United States and the whole world.
Burger King.
All right. Well, we're going to ignore that one. But, you know, Five Guys is fantastic. Never lets you down. A little pricey, but I think you're paying for what you're getting. And, you know, a lot of people don't like the mushrooms, but I think the mushrooms are perfect. I'll put mushrooms on a pizza. Do a lot with mushrooms. Definitely can't complain about mushrooms. Now, we're gonna skip to Kevin. Kevin's going last now.
Oh.
We're gonna go to Brandon. Brandon, how we doing tonight?
Good, man. I'm doing good tonight. Not much else to say. Doing better than Denny Hamlin because, you know, he's a little trash, but I'm not good.
Well, we got the Jeff Gordon hat on tonight, so no need to come after Denny Hamlin. You know, had Matt Kenseth do it, Bristol.
Hey, he ain't wrecked, so we good. No flat tire. No flat tire.
And Kevin, so no Casey Kane this week. You know, definitely disappointing. How are you holding up?
Holding up good. You know, Kyle Larson, my favorite driver. You know, he's doing well out there. You know,
He finished second in his dirt race.
hey, he's the man. No, but we're doing good out here. You know, still better than Brandon. So that's all you gotta do.
We got some competition later on. Toward the end of the podcast, we're making our picks. Bunch of losers last week. We're going to try to make up for that one and get you guys a winner this week. But going into Bristol, I want to start with NASCAR as in a whole. What is the deal with the cautions? Now, this is something that has infuriated me for years. NASCAR has been the most inconsistent sport with a rule ever. Worse than the NFL with pass interference. I mean, what is it? What is a caution? What isn't a caution? What is going on? I mean, Joey Gase grazes the wall on lap like 174, and we've got a caution right away, no hesitation. But Chase Elliott and Joey Logano slam the wall, full-on wreck with 4 laps to go. No caution. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then they stay out on the racetrack just throwing debris everywhere. I mean, it's just so infuriating. And I'm going to go to Brandon first. Brandon, what is the deal with these cautions?
Let's not think about now. We realize NASCAR is inconsistent with everything they do. But the cautions, first of all, there are too many competition cautions. We had, two in the first 60 laps, which I don't know the purpose of. We had one in the previous races, but we had two at Bristol, and there was no rain, so I don't understand that. But NASCAR does need to get more consistent with cautions. You'll have a guy barely spin out. Like Ryan Newman, he barely spun out yesterday, and the caution came out. Like you said, Joey Gates will graze the wall, caution flies. But with 2 to go, Chase Elliott and Joey Logano damn near tear the wall down, no caution came out. But I don't know. They just need to get more consistent on calling cautions.
And, it's not a good look. I think the fans would have been more happy with a green-white checkered after, letting that all settle down and simmer down. I'm sure Logano would have went after Elliott under the caution. I think it would have been perfect if they would have thrown a caution. You're going to get a green-white checkered. You're going to get a crazy finish. And, Wes, I'm going to go to you. What's the deal with all the cautions? I mean, I think you've got a stat coming up, with the amount, the race was run under caution.
Yeah, I got that stat from Racing Reference. They're really on top of getting different stats for each race compiled. And the thing that I saw that kind of blew my mind was that 20.4% of the race was actually run under caution, which meant that pretty much, I guess, 100 laps of the entire race itself was ran under caution, which is just pretty crazy. But then again, we have to think that they didn't have really any practice. They didn't go into it with any setups. And also 2 of those were the competition cautions that we had early on. But it's kind of weird that we had that many, especially for kind of the expectations that I thought we were going to have. I thought it would be a lot cleaner of a race, even with no practice. But and then again, we did see a couple of those that didn't really make sense, especially the Joey Gase one. I think Ryan Preece might have been another one. At one point during the race, 2 examples of them just grazing the wall and nothing happens. And then, of course, the last one definitely should have been a caution between Chase and Joey Logano when they just slammed the wall and are littering debris the entire last few laps of the race, which I don't know if it affected any other driver's performance. We didn't hear anything about that, but it definitely could have had they run over something wrong and they just didn't cover it on TV, which we've seen them miss stuff like that before, especially if it's somebody further back than 10th place on the track. So I don't know. It was just a pretty crazy race, especially with all those cautions. But the times that we did see the green flag runs kind of moving away from the caution aspect, it was really good racing. I thought it was some of the better racing that we saw this year, especially with this package that they were able to introduce here at Bristol. And I think that could be a good sign for the next short track race that we're going to have, which I believe is going to be Martinsville in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, I want to reiterate, the point Brandon made about the competition cautions. I think they've got to stop. They got to lay off on those. It's just it does open up the door for more strategy, but who needs strategy if you can get the green flag racing? And, Steve, I know we talked about it last episode, just laying off the competition cautions. And then we find out they would throw 2 in the first 60 laps for Bristol. I mean, it's like they listened to our podcast and just did the exact opposite of what we were talking about. I mean, do you think NASCAR is going to keep doing these competition cautions as long as they don't have any practice?
Well, I sure hope not. Like you said, there's 2 within the first 60 laps, 1 coming on lap 20. You can barely get any laps run during the race, and we're already throwing a caution. So it's hard for the teams to judge what the car is doing in 20 laps because you're barely getting any heat in the tires at that point. So NASCAR definitely does need to they do need to lay off the competition cautions. There's way too many, and if they happen to be listening to our podcast and doing the opposite, then let's just have the whole race run under competition cautions if they're doing the opposite. So just way too many in my opinion.
And, you do all that. And at Bristol, they wrecked in the first 4 laps. And we literally went from lap 4 to, lap 11 under caution and still threw the competition caution lap 20. There was about 8 green flag laps when the competition caution came out. That's a joke. You can't get a real look at tire wear, car handling, or anything in 8 laps at Bristol. It's just they need to either make it later into a run or just can it all together unless it rains, because there's just absolutely no reason for it. It's just it's infuriating. It takes away from green flag racing that we could be having, and it's contributing to 20% of the race, being run under caution. Average green flag run from according to West is 22 laps. I mean, that's not good. What makes Bristol good is, long green flag runs. That's where you get the best racing at Bristol. When the tires starting to wear out, lap traffic becomes an issue. And we're not seeing that, especially at the beginning of the races when there's all 40 cars on the racetrack. But we need to move on. And we're going to go into the finish of the race. Chase Elliott, Joey Logano. I'm just going to give it to Kevin. Kevin, what was your perspective of the Chase Elliott, Joey Logano incident?
Basically, Chase just set it into Logano. I really don't think there's any other way you can kind of explain that. Chase said that he, had a tire going down, but I think he really just sent it in there, and he just couldn't make it stick. I mean, he was trying to go for the lead, and he just couldn't do it. It's one of those racing things, kind of dirty on Chase's part, at least in my opinion. But I think overall, it was just, I don't think you can really explain it any way else other than Chase he tried to send it in there, just couldn't make it stick on the bottom.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone do something that stupid at Bristol, toward the end of the race since Matt Kenseth in 2006 in the Food City 500 when he took out Jeff Gordon for no reason. And, having, Gordon fans on the podcast, we got 3 of them here against one Matt Kenseth fan. We could just jump him like Jeff did, at Chicagoland. But we're not going to do that. Brandon, do you think Joey Logano did anything wrong to Chase Elliott to maybe bring that upon him?
No, I know everybody knows I'm not the biggest Joey Logano fan, but I can't put any blame on him for this. Chase Elliott did just drive it in a little too deep, got into his door and ruined both their days. But Joey Logano did nothing wrong. Chase Elliott just went to the corner a little too hard. Probably was thinking, because he had a dominant car like last 150, 200 laps. He's probably thinking, I can't let this one slide, so I have to try something, and it just didn't work out for him. But you can say it was a racing deal, but it was more of just Chase probably just being too overly aggressive.
And Steve, are you buying that Chase Elliott had a tire go down? Are we buying that?
No, I don't know. It's hard to tell because you look at when they came off of turn 2 and Elliott's right front kind of hit Logano's left rear, and the way that Elliott's car kind of slid into turn 3, it was looking like a right rear tire was going down because the back end of the car tried to slide out. If his right front tire was going down, he would have just drove straight up the wall, or straight up, towards Logano. So I just think, like everyone else said, that Chase just got loose under Logano. Can't put any blame on Joey. This, unfortunately, is all on Chase, and all you can do is just own up to it. That's what Chase tried to do, and I guess didn't own up to it with Joey right away. So I was kind of hoping that this social distancing thing could go away so we could see a fight. That's kind of what NASCAR is missing right now. But it was all on Chase and just a racing deal. I think he's had one of the fastest cars during the race and just couldn't handle taking P2.
And Wes, I want you to talk about the Chase Elliott fan base. A lot of them, blame Kyle Busch and want him to go after Kyle Busch, and then Chase Elliott does that. Just tell me about the Chase Elliott fan base, and do you think it compares to the Dale Jr. fan base?
Hey, go easy on me, Wes. Though go easy on me.
Steve is one of the best Chase Elliott fans. I think we all know,
Appreciate
especially in our group. But for the most part, I think there are some similarities between the two. And I feel like a lot of it comes down between how they are treated when it comes to either them causing a wreck or them actually being a part of a wreck that's not of their own doing. And of course, conveniently, it comes back and forth, or pretty not back and forth, but back to back. We saw it with the Kyle Busch incident at Darlington, where a lot of the blame was put on Kyle Busch, said it was done intentionally. And then here we have Chase Elliott making a mistake, and him also taking out Joey Logano, who was competing for the win as well. But there not being as much blame put on Chase Elliott because that was apparently hard racing. Granted, it is hard racing, and they were going for the win, but we have to look back at Darlington and understand that was the exact same situation. They weren't racing until the end of the race. There was still 20 laps to go, but they were racing to the weather as well, because the weather came out not even 2 or 3 minutes after the caution came. We saw it started raining on the track, and that was probably going to come in the green flag run. So they were racing for the finish as well. Darlington also is always hard racing. It's one of the hardest tracks. Every NASCAR driver says it. It's one of their favorite tracks. So in both situations, it was two guys that made two different mistakes at two different tracks, but it was still hard racing nonetheless because they were racing for the finish. And unfortunately, it took out two contenders. And also, well, I guess in Bristol's situation, it was two, but at Darlington, of course, just one, that being Chase Elliott. So I think there are some similarities there. It's kind of hard to see there always being some kind of bias towards one or the other, but I think, especially for us, I think we can sit down and realize like what is a mistake and what isn't.
And Kevin, I want to wrap this up with you, start and end it with you. Do you think Chase Elliott is getting kind of over his head? He had the incident where he could have won Darlington. Then he goes on to do the truck race at Charlotte and wins, and then mocks Kyle Busch with his bow, and then does this to Joey Logano. Do you think Chase Elliott thinks he's invincible right now, and that's why he's kind of doing everything he's doing?
I feel like that could be part of it. I don't think it's the whole thing, but I do think, the way, after getting wrecked by Kyle Busch at Darlington and then almost winning at Charlotte and then, winning the truck race and all that stuff. I think that did kind of, play into effect of, how he kind of handled this situation here with Logano. But I think part of it is, just kind of like the ego he's had the past couple races or so. But I think, again, part of it was he just made a mistake. He's still kind of a young driver. And I think, he was being aggressive, trying to go for the win, trying to get in front of Joey, and he just sent it in there a little bit too hard. So.
All right. And we want to transition that to the Joe Gibbs Racing stable. They finally, all four cars looked like they had some speed. If you want to throw in Christopher Bell as a fifth, they all had top 10 speed. It seemed like, especially towards the end of the race. You had Hamlin and Kyle Busch, basically the top two, basically the last half of the race. Christopher Bell got up to third at one point and was running around fifth or sixth until an uncontrolled tire penalty sent him to the back. And then Eric Jones was running, top five until he got caught up in that incident with Kevin Harvick having a tire go down. And Martin Truex Jr. had flashes. Truex still not back to Martin Truex-like, but I think he's right on the cusp of getting back to it. The Gibbs cars, I think they're finally starting to get back into it. I think honestly, they probably come with the best handling cars, just not the raw speed that maybe the Hendrick cars have right now. Because you kind of see it over the long run. It seems like the Gibbs guys seem to outperform everybody else, on the long run. And Brandon, do you think Joe Gibbs Racing is starting to flex their muscle into this whole battle?
I do think Joe Gibbs Racing is starting to come into form, at least what we're accustomed to seeing the past couple years, because, last 2, 3, 4 seasons, even back to about 2013, they've been basically the best team in NASCAR. And they did struggle at the beginning of the season, especially Martin Truex with the loss of Cole Pern. People are wondering how he performed because, before he got Cole Pern, he was basically just a mid-pack driver at DEI, MWR, and all the teams he drove for. But JGR, I think we've seen this before, actually, that they start off slow sometimes, but get around middle of the season, they get back to speed or custom seeing. So I think everything's just coming together at the right time for that team.
Mm-hmm. And Wes, do you think Hamlin maybe should be concerned that he's not finishing the deal in a couple of these races. Denny Hamlin making an uncharacteristic, like mistake, at a short track. It's usually Denny Hamlin's bread and butter, and he slipped up with 13 to go, and that allowed Logano and Chase Elliott to get to him and eventually led to him getting wrecked after Logano overdrove the corner. Do you think Denny Hamlin, do you think it has anything to do with the loss of his crew chief, or you think that was just a simple mistake and he'll just brush it off?
I think on Hamlin's part from that, I think it was just a simple mistake. Bristol's a tough track. I feel like it's pretty hard for people to be consistent, especially within 500 laps. And we can't just expect him to be perfect the last few laps because it's Bristol, baby, as they always say. It's hard to be perfect and be able to nail those consistent laps, whether you're the leader or you're pacing in 17th place or you're in the top 5. So I think it was just a mistake on his behalf, but I think it's something that he can just brush off. He's not really in a situation where he needs to win because he's already looking very strong this season. I had put him in the top 5 contenders at the moment for a potential championship winner. If I were to throw 5 names out there, throw him like guys like him and Bowman. But right now I would actually compare him to kind of Alex Bowman. They have both and even Ryan Blaney, all 3 of them, incredible speed this year, but they haven't been able to close the deal. Of course, Blaney, no wins. Hamlin was able to get the Daytona 500 win and the Darlington win, and Bowman was able to win an Auto Club. But all 3 of them, they haven't been able to finish it up, but I think they can all brush it off because we've seen them have that great speed this year. And Hamlin at Bristol was, of course, a contender. And I think as long as we're seeing him up front and contend for those wins, including the other 2 names I mentioned, I think that we're going to expect them to get more victories later on this year. Blaney maybe his first of the season, and be contenders, of course, when it gets to the championship season. So I think it's something that they can just push aside for right now and not worry too much. I think the loss of the crew chief, it seemed like things were playing off for them well, even though he's not paired up with his older crew chief or that he's had earlier this season. So I feel like he's off to a pretty. I think it seems like I'm not too sure of the new fella's name that is his crew chief, but it seems like they have a good connection. What is his name?
It's Sam McCauley.
Sam McCauley, that's right.
Yeah.
So it seems like they have a good bond so far, and based off that performance alone at Bristol, I think that was it looked like a stellar performance. Just a simple mistake at the end that unfortunately cost him a chance at the win, but also kind of played a factor in the wild finish that we did have. So I think it's something, like I said, that he can just brush off, and we'll see him contend for a potential win next week.
Of course, and the 11 team has been strong. And Kevin, how long do you think it takes Kyle Busch before he gets into victory lane? It's been 9 races and no Kyle Busch in victory lane, defending champion. What's going on?
Yeah, I picked Kyle Busch to win at Bristol. It hasn't been the best season for him, at least to start off. But he did finish 4th. But obviously he looked strong for most of the day. He was up the lead for a little bit of the race, and I thought he would have had a chance there at the end, but things didn't really fall his way. I'm not really sure when he's going to get the win. Bristol was a good bounce back race for him. I think he performed better than he has the whole season for the most part. When he gets that win, I'm not really sure. I think he maybe could win at Atlanta for the next race, but we'll have to see. But I think for him, it's more kind of baby steps, just kind of work his way back up. He can't try to get the whole thing at once. And he made a big step in how he performed at Bristol, so hopefully he can kind of build on that and hopefully maybe get a win at Atlanta. So,
and Steve, with Eric Jones, it's no secret he's the unluckiest driver in that Joe Gibbs Racing stable. Does that come back to 5th place? Does that finish, maybe give that team some confidence? Do you think it's something he could get through, and could Eric Jones maybe be in victory lane here soon?
Yeah, I really think so. I think week in and week out, we've been seeing that 20 car really be the dark horse of the JGR cars. We see the 18 and the 11 up front, still waiting on Martin Truex to get back to his old form. But Eric Jones has just been kind of steadily there in the top 10, couple glimpses at the top 5, and towards the end of the race, of course, has the worst luck in NASCAR. And something terrible usually happens, like that pitting outside the box, and I guess that warrants as a 1-lap penalty. So I do think we see Eric Jones in victory lane soon. It's is a big year for him because obviously we know that Christopher Bell is waiting to get into an actual JGR car, not just an affiliate. And a lot of people are kind of pointing their fingers at the 20 car for Christopher Bell. So this is a big kind of prove it year for Eric Jones. And I do think that he gets a couple wins this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then you got Martin Truex Jr. Like I said before, I think it's just going to come down to some time with his crew chief. And I think give him some time. And Martin Truex Jr., he'll be like one of those dangerous drivers. Once he gets to victory lane, he might reel off a few. And I want to move into the Xfinity race. We're just going to talk about the finish. You know, it's kind of a similar finish to what we saw in the Cup race. You know, we saw the 9 car go to the bottom of the leader. And the guy on the outside of the 9 car ended up in the wall. This time we got a caution because Justin Allgaier ended up spinning. Wes, what did you think of Noah Gregson's move? Clean, dirty, wrong, right?
I would put it back towards kind of the Chase Elliott incident. I think it was just a mistake, but I also think it was just hard racing. It's Bristol. You can't expect perfection. And especially on that bottom line when you're entering the corner, kind of at the angle he did, it's tough when you're side by side like that, especially with a car that's just as fast as you are. And also the pressure's on you being just a second-year driver looking for a potential Cup ride next season. And also, of course, it's your teammate. You want to try to race clean, but it's just hard to be perfect every single lap. So I don't think it was anything intentional. There's no way it could be. I didn't see them really make that much contact or have any kind of issues during the race. Of course, their teammates too. I think it was just a simple mistake on Gregson's part. And he was able to keep going after that and was able to get the victory. Unfortunate for Allgaier, a guy that, if you want to talk about the Eric Jones of the Cup Series, he's kind of the Eric Jones of the Xfinity Series. So it seems like luck hasn't gone his way at all this year. Allgaier, of course, Bristol's one of his best tracks. It's the first track he ever won at in the Xfinity Series. But these past few Bristol races we've seen in recent years, it just seems like nothing's gone his way. It's unfortunate for him, but I think that Allgaier can look towards maybe getting a victory this year because he has had good speed. But hopefully he'll be able to brush it off. He still was able to come away with the top 20. Unfortunate to see, of course, it being a teammate, but I'd imagine they're going to talk it over, get a better understanding of what happened. But I think in the end of things, we're going to understand it was just hard racing. Bristol's what it is, and I think they can look forward to both still having good seasons and being able to potentially be championship favorites.
And I think adding on to what Wes had to say with them being teammates, you have to look at the end of the race and see that there's only, a handful of laps to go. And I think you have to throw the teammate thing out the window if you're Noah Gragson or Justin Allgaier. You're going for the win. You owe it to your sponsors and to your team, to your crew guys that work hard every single week. You owe it to them to get to victory lane. Whether that's a teammate or not, you got to go for the win. So it is unfortunate that the two junior motorsports cars kind of got together, and but I think they'll settle things out. And but when it gets down to the end of these races, you have to go for the win and not take second place.
Yeah, you say that, and that applies to everybody apparently, except for Greg Biffle in the 2012 Daytona 500. I mean, the man just doesn't make a move to win the Daytona 500. Just pushes Matt Kenseth to one. He just pushes Matt Kenseth to the win, like Matt Kenseth never won the race in his life.
Hey, Greg Biffle's being a good teammate. He did the right thing that night.
I mean, Matt Kenseth won it 3 years ago. Go win it for yourself, Greg. I mean, you owe it to yourself. You're racing so long, and you have the chance to win the Daytona 500, and you just sit there and finish third because you let Dale Jr. pass you because you didn't want to go for the win. Because I'm sure Dale Jr. would have pushed you to the win if you would have just pulled to the outside. But enough about 2012 and Matt Kenseth, and because Matt Kenseth right now has looked irrelevant on the racetrack. We're not going to talk about irrelevancy. But
Hey, Matt was in the top 10 yesterday a little bit, but it kind of faded away. But we'll talk about that right now.
but some relevancy, though, we got to look at our rookies. We've got our Cup rookies. You've got, the 4 guys that have really been, highlighted. Well, 3 have been highlighted, but John Hunter Nemechek has really run his way into this Rookie of the Year conversation in that 38 car. Ever since we've come back, John Hunter Nemechek has kind of been running up in the top 10. And if it wasn't for the equipment, I feel like, failing on him toward the end of these races, he could have gotten a few more top 10 finishes. Steve, do you think John Hunter Nemechek has a legitimate chance at maybe getting the Rookie of the Year?
Well, it's going to be a stretch, and it's really on how well the Front Row Motorsports equipment holds up. The talent is there, and it's just depending on the equipment now. So, we've seen a lot of speed out of this 38 car, and it's been highlighted that the talent is outperforming the equipment. And it's interesting to say, or interesting to think about what John Hunter Nemechek could be doing if he was in a top-tier ride. So I think he's really going toe-to-toe with the rest of these rookies and making a lot out of the less underperforming equipment. So I think he definitely has a legitimate shot at the Rookie of the Year. We're seeing Christopher Bell kind of heat up now and get some better runs out of this 95 car after a rough start to the season. Cole Custer still hasn't gotten the wheels turning there, and Tyler Reddick has really improved the last couple of weeks. Ran really quick at Charlotte and was up front a lot of the races there. But as far as John Hunter Nemechek, if he keeps up these top 10 runs, I definitely think that's going to attract more sponsorship, and hopefully Front Row Motorsports can get better equipment at that point. So I really do think that he has a legitimate shot at maybe getting Rookie of the Year this year.
And I feel like we can extend back on John Hunter Nemechek too to both of his experience in the Xfinity Series and his experience in the Truck Series, because if you look at it in the scheme of things, I felt like he was running in pretty underfunded equipment then too, because if you look at his Truck Series career, of course, driving for Nemco Motorsports, and Nemco never really was known for their truck cars and had a lot of mechanical issues during their time, but he was able to push that thing to the max and get multiple victories driving there in the Truck Series, and was always seemed to be one of the contenders for the win until some kind of problem had struck at some point in the race, whether it be kind of a mistake of his own doing, but a lot of mechanical equipment. Another underfunded team, I would say. And then you look at his Xfinity Series time in GMS. That was GMS's first ever season full-time with equipment in the Xfinity Series. So they had a lot of catching up to do, especially contending with the likes of the Stuart Haas and the Joe Gibbs cars and everybody else. And he was able to excel, especially late in that second half of the season. It seemed like he all of a sudden became one of the championship contenders after a first half of the season. It was kind of a slow start and a struggle. It seemed like they weren't able to get their bearings or be able to contend on the same level. And unfortunately, they did shut down, but it seemed like he excelled in that equipment too. So now seeing him do so well in Front Row Motorsports equipment, another underfunded team. I'm not saying GMS is underfunded, but I would say that compared to the other teams, I think that he definitely lacked a little bit of the horsepower and the funding that, of course, some of the better teams had. It seems like John Hunter Nemechek maybe is a better driver than I feel like that we are seeing just based off his performance, even though he is competing at the moment inside the top 20 in almost every single race that we've had. So I think we could see a lot from John Hunter Nemechek the rest of the season, and I think that it could come the second half, depending on if Front Row Motorsports is able to keep this momentum up, and including Michael McDowell, depending on their teamwork that they're able to put together there for their rides.
And Kevin, one guy that's kind of been non-existent really this year, not really talked about, since the start, is Cole Custer. Do you think the 41 team and Cole Custer, you think they need to start worrying after 9 races?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really looked that good over there at Stuart Haas. I thought he was maybe going to be better than he has been so far, but really he hasn't really been up there. He hasn't really been talked about. I mean, part of it, obviously, isn't all his fault. There's just some unlucky things that happen, but at the same time, he isn't really, when he's not getting involved in race or not having, blown tires or anything like that, he's not really performing well either. I haven't really heard him. It's really been mostly Christopher Bell and JHM that have really been heard or I've been hearing about. And, Tyler Reddick, he's starting to pop up a little bit more as well. So I think Custer definitely – I think that 41 team definitely has to somewhat start worrying here because he's not in terrible equipment. So it's not like, he shouldn't be up there. Granted, he is a rookie, so that might be, a factor. But at the same time, he's not on front row. He's not in, a Joe Gibbs affiliate like the 95. He's in a pretty decent team. He just hasn't really been performing well. So I think the 41 camp definitely has to start kind of looking around here and getting a little bit worried as we move farther into the season.
And Brandon, who wins the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year?
I think ultimately when it comes down to it, I think Christopher Bell won the Rookie of the Year because I think JGR is going to put a little bit more support into that 95 team. Plus, I don't think that Tyler Reddick nor John Hunter Nemechek will have the same performances as the season goes on because those teams aren't as well funded or have the speed as Joe Gibbs' affiliate. And I don't think Cole Custer will completely bounce back. I do think he'll get better as the season goes on. I don't think he'll win a race or anything like that. But I do think that Cole Custer will get better as the season goes on. But I don't think it'll be enough to unseat Christopher Bell for the Rookie of the Year.
All right. And now what everyone comes here for, our race picks for Atlanta. Last week was a rough week for us. Nobody getting anything right. We had me with Matt DiBenedetto. He got wrecked. West picked Kurt Busch, wrecked. Somehow finished in the top 10, though, in 7th. Kevin picked Kyle Busch. Looked legitimate for a little while. Almost got it. Steve picked Alex Bowman, wrecked. And Brandon picked Ryan Blaney, wrecked. So, who are we going to jinx this week and have them get wrecked? We'll go back to Brandon. Brandon, who's winning in Atlanta?
Oh, man, I really can't think about it, but who will win in Atlanta? You know what? I'm going to go with Alex Bowman. He's been really fast all season. He's been really good at any kind of track to go to. He dominated Auto Club, was good at Darlington, was good at Charlotte. I think he'll be able to get a second win this season. He was at first leading the Hendrick stable, but right now Chase Elliott's kind of taking the lead. But I think Alex Bowman will get back to form. I think he'll win Atlanta.
And Kevin, you had the best run last week. Who we picking this week?
I think I'm gonna stay with KB. I'm staying with that 18 team. I feel like they've been building the whole season. It's been a little bit of a rough start for him, but he did finish 6th last year in the February Atlanta race, and so I think he might be able to get the win. We'll see what happens, but he's always been strong at the mile and a half. So I feel like if there's any race that he can get the win, if it wasn't last week, I think it's got to be at next or this upcoming race at Atlanta. But we'll have to see. So.
And we'll go to Steve. Steve, rough performance. Couldn't make it back to back. What happened?
Couldn't make it back to back, but I'm going to try to bounce back this week. I'm going with last year's winner at Atlanta. I'm going to go with the 2 of Brad Keselowski, Bristol's winner, and also won the Coca-Cola 600. Riding a big wave of momentum right now. I'm going to stick with the 2 of Brad Keselowski. He's going to win Sunday at Atlanta.
And Wes, Kurt Busch wasn't a great pick. Got caught up in a wreck and somehow finished 7th. Who we going with this week?
Man, just to speak on Kurt Busch, I couldn't believe that at first he wasn't even a contender, and then gets in the wreck, and then somehow with one of the most beat-up race cars in the top 20 was able to finish in the top 10. Have no clue how he did it. Kurt Busch is still one of Bristol's best, maybe the best all time at the track. But moving on to Atlanta.
Wait, whoa.
What's that?
Daryl Waltrip
forget
may
that.
have
Junior Johnson.
Daryl Waltrip may have something to say about that. He was 7 in a
Well,
row there.
What's happened to? Oh no! What's happened to Wes?
I won't say anything about old DW, but I still think Kevin Harvick can give him a run for his money. We'll put him in the same car, two similar cars, and see how they do. I'm just kidding. I'm giving him a hard time. No, moving on to Atlanta though. It's gonna be interesting to see. But I'm going back to a man that won in his 3rd career start at Atlanta. That pick is Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick's always fared really, really well at the track. It's one of his better tracks, I think, that really fits his driving style. And I feel like he's done pretty well with recent packages. he's always been a contender up front, and I think that he'll be able to get another victory at Atlanta. So we'll see how he does.
You know, my picks have fared pretty poorly.
Here we go, another left field pick.
We started with William Byron. That didn't work out. Then we went with Eric Jones. That didn't work out. We went Matt DiBenedetto. That just did not work. So this week, we got to get back on track. We're getting back up there. I would be picking Greg Biffle if he was in the field this week. I'd stick with the Biff. He's not in the field this week. You know, I think we're going to go with the hot hand right now. We're going the 9 car, Chase Elliott. He's getting a hometown win. He's going to sweep the stages. He's going to lead 187 laps. And he's going to win by 7.3 seconds over Martin Truex Jr. in Atlanta. Chase Elliott will get to hear the siren right at the track. Chase Elliott, first career win at his home track in Atlanta.
Book it.
Don, it sounded like it hurt you physically to say that. Like, it really did.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Don.
Well, you know, it's been Chase Elliott has been the whole sport, basically. You know, I'll even double down. He'll win the truck race, too. Chase Elliott's going to sweep the weekend. This whole sport's been revolved around Chase Elliott. It's going to continue to revolve around Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's going to win the championship this year. No, we're not picking that yet. We're not getting too carried away. We'll get to our championship picks, you know, way down the line. But if anyone else doesn't have anything, I think that's all we've got for today. We got Brandon, Kevin, Wes, Steve. I'm your host, Don Cabs. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the race on Sunday for the Quick Trip Folds of Honor 500, and we will see you next time.